Hey, what is going on, YouTube fans, crowdfunding community, and nation? Welcome back to another exciting episode, the Big 2-1, episode number 21, with myself and my good pal, my compadre, my amigo, Mr. Billy Tucci. Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
How are we doing tonight, Billy?
Good to see you. What's up, Nile?
Oh, you know, it's same old, same old. The pleasure of being with my buddy here, chatting a little bit. We got a great guest on tonight.
Yes, we do. We've got one of the best draftsmen in the comics industry and storytellers, and now he's adding his skills to help others, which I think is pretty great.
Oh, yes. And I'm quite familiar with his work, and I'll express my my gratitude.
Well,
for the education.
Technically, we've been doing this for a few weeks. We've had a great amount of guests. We've had some real superstars, and then we've had some unknowns. Of course, our latest guest falls into the farmer. He's been doing comics for over 25 years. He's one of the nicest guys in the industry, aside from one of the most talented people. And it's so great to have him on our 21st show, even though we're technically 23 to 24, but this is our 21st guest show, a crowdfunding show.
Correct. Yep. So this is the 21st crowdfunding comics episode. But as you guys know, we do a couple specials now. And we have a couple kind of spin-off shows. So this is the 21st with our traditional crowdfunding comics.
Excellent. So now we can, it's the first. It's almost like it's our first time going to the local pub, handing that smug bouncer your real ID, so you could purchase an $8 beer from the bar, and depending on where you live, some can buy reefer for you reefer addicts out there, which I do not condone at all. But we won't get into that. Now on to our guest. Let's introduce the great, the one, the only, Mr. Andy
Smith.
Where is he?
It's right there.
What's up, guys?
What is going on, sir? How are you tonight?
I'm doing good, man. And first, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, Billy and Niles. This is great. So
glad to have you.
It's our privilege, because what you're doing is it's a rarity. What you're doing is unlike any other crowdfunded books that are out there now, is that you have an instructional book. And it's almost like a 21st century how to draw comics the Marvel way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes and no. It's actually that's a great description for my first book that was drawing dynamic comics.
Yeah.
And this is a mock-up that I had made at Kinko's. So.
Oh, cool.
Once the book is funded, hopefully this baby will be real and it won't have this spiral bound. But I actually had a mock-up of the whole book made at Kinko's, which I don't mind saying, this mock-up cost $80.
Man. Holy crap.
But what the book is it's called Dynamic Hero Templates, and it has 8 different male body types, and this is volume 1, the male.
Mm-hmm.
So 8 male body types and 6 male heads. And basically, it's for the character designer that, like, I've met people that just like designing costumes, and they don't want to deal with learning how to draw figures and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to design costumes.
Yeah.
But they don't have the basic foundation to draw the costumes over. So, for instance, I don't know how well it'll show up, but, oops. God, which way am I going? This way. There we go. So, the book is all printed in non-photo glue with the front and back of male physique. And then they just pick a physique because, like I said, there's 8 different types. And so if they want the standard, say, Superman body type, it's in here. Mm-hmm. If they want a hulking, brutish body type, it's in here. And they're reproduced more than just once. So, if you're like, well, I want to design a couple, standard Superman, Captain America bodies, that's cool because they're duplicated multiple times in the book.
Fantastic.
So basically, you're just drawing over my blue line template of a figure. And then if you want to do details on the heads are in,
oh, wow.
in close up. So you can do the head details. So it's not actually an instructional book. There's really no text in it at all, except for at the top of every page telling you what the figure is. Like in the beginning of the book, I show a couple examples.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an example over a child template.
Mm-hmm.
That's an example I did over the big husky guy template. So it's 48 pages, 8.5 by 11 bound on the 8.5 side. So it's landscape.
Nice.
And you just draw, like I said, you draw right in the book. So if you're a young artist, and you do want to draw comics and you're making up your own characters, but you're not happy with the level of drawing ability you have, then you can design your costumes over one of the templates in the book. And I remember growing up, Dungeons and Dragons was huge, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you create your own characters in Dungeons and Dragons. And I had friends that would ask me, because I was an artist in a group, oh, if I write down the description of my character, I can't draw. Can you do a sketch of them? Well, now that person can just grab this book and do their own sketch because they don't have to know how to draw a figure. I already did that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All you do is draw over top of it.
Yeah. I remember I used to design clothes.
Yeah.
I went to college and then I got a job working for Macy's designing clothes, and I moved on to children's wear, doing the children's clothes, but all the adult clothes, like for the designers that they did, the designer, like even the big designers, say you got Yves Saint Laurent, right? He'll do a gesture drawing, but then they've got to make this, so they would have their model, their template. And the designers would just draw the clothes onto it, basically because it's got to look more realistic. And I think this is great not only for comic creators, because my 13-year-old son said we have to buy that because he wants it for his new comic, new comic he wants to do, and he's already informed me that we're doing it as a Indiegogo next year, so I gotta get on it. But also for cosplayers, like to design their costumes, and they can get the masks for the heads and stuff too.
Oh yeah, well it's besides comic books, besides cosplayers, which I got to be honest, when I wrote the description out on Kickstarter, I never even thought of that because I thought of comic books, role-playing games, even video games where you create your own characters, movie design, to create costume designs for movies and stuff. It just has tons of uses, and like I said, it's for any age range. A 5-10-year-old kid that's
Mm-hmm.
just picking up a pencil. It could be somebody that's in their 20s that, once again, never took an art class. But you don't need an art class to design costumes and stuff over pre-drawn templates because the hard part's done.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was a kid, and, Billy, you can probably attest to this. You're growing up, you're learning to draw, you're teaching yourself how to draw. And, when I was like 12, 13, I was looking at printed comics by guys like Neil Adams and Joe Kubert and so on and so forth, going, man, I want to draw like that. And then I'm looking at what I'm doing going, this is just garbage.
I know.
Why can't I design a character? I'm designing these characters that the costumes look cool, but my drawing's not up to snuff.
Yeah.
But if I had this book, I could have designed over top, and at least I'd be able to see what these costumes would look like designed on a professional, drawn figure.
Yeah.
And it's, on my Kickstarter page, one of the first examples is a drawing I did when I was 12 that I dug out. And then I did the exact same costume design over a template in the book, just to show the difference of 12-year-old drawing, same costume, didn't change a damn thing about the costume design. I just drew it over one of the templates in the book, and it makes a big difference.
Heck
And
yeah.
it's price-wise, it's $10. It's not like it's breaking the bank, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, right now, we've done, like I said, 21 shows featuring Kickstarters and Indiegogos, and so many of the levels are $80, $100, $200, $500, and you're selling an instructional book, a guide, an aid for creators of all across the spectrum for only $10.
Yeah, and
You've got the biggest bargain crowdfunded book that we've ever covered by far.
Exactly. And I was just trying to think of it because I've backed. It's funny, when you set up a Kickstarter, it'll say how many you've backed. I've backed, and this to me sounds like a lot. Maybe it's not, but I've backed 72 Kickstarter campaigns.
Yeah.
And so I looked at all of them just so I could kind of get different vibes on how I wanted to set the page up. And I also thought, well, retail price of the book, because I did go out and buy a barcode and an ISBN for it.
Now, how much, if you don't mind, could you tell us, because we always get people asking us questions.
Sure.
Where did you buy the barcode and the ISBN? Did you buy them together or separate? And how much are they roughly, if you don't mind?
I don't mind telling you. You buy them separately. The website I use is, if I remember correctly, called myidentifiers.com. And here's the funny thing, because I've actually told this story to a few people because it really does crack me up. So when you buy the ISBN number, you can buy just one, or you can buy, in bulk, whatever.
Yeah.
So if you buy one, and now don't quote me on these prices because it's been a while, but I know I'm right in the ballpark. One ISBN from this website is like $125.
Mm-hmm.
10 ISBNs are $290.
How much? 190?
$290.
290. So yeah.
So why would you buy one?
Right.
Yeah.
Buy two, you're already at $250. So $40 more gets you 10. So I bought 10.
Nice. Nice.
I've got 9 extra ISBNs. Barcodes actually aren't that much. Barcodes, I think they're like $25-26 a piece. And then they start giving you a price break. 1 to 5 is like $25-26. 6 to 10 is another amount, and then it just goes that way. So I only did buy one barcode because the price break isn't huge like on the ISBN numbers.
Right. Now, is Frank Amazing with us, Nile?
Frank Amazing is with us, and he's been putting links and stuff in the chat. So, Andy, if you don't mind, because we've got a lot of guys in the chat and what have you, I'd like to just kind of know like a bit of your origin story.
Yeah. Sure. My parents met, and they had that special attraction. Oh, not that. Well, like most kids, I drew in elementary school. I drew all the time. The difference is at a certain point, and once again, Billy, I'm sure you can attest to this, your friends stop drawing, but as an artist, you just keep at it. There's something inside of you that's like, I just have to do this. Mm-hmm. And so I kept drawing. When I was in middle school, it was either middle school or freshman in high school, I was flipping through a comic book because, I collected comics, and I saw an ad for the Joe Kubert School in the back of a comic. And I was like, right there, I said, this is where I want to go. Mm-hmm. I showed my parents and said, Mom, Dad, this is it. And they're like, but it's in a comic. And I'm like, I don't care. This is, we're talking the 80s, so there's no websites, none of that,
right.
None of that stuff. I called up and had them send me information. And I was, I don't know if this is the best way to go. I mean, it worked out for me, but I was singularly focused. I had like the horse blinders on. I said, I'm going to the Kubert School. I'm not going anywhere else. I took the SAT, even though I didn't need it for the Kubert School. And I can tell you, in all honesty, I crapped the bed on the SAT because I just didn't care. So I'm glad I got into the Kubert School.
What'd you get your SAT, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't even remember.
Oh.
I honestly don't remember. It was below 1,000. It wasn't like super far down, but it, I don't remember.
You weren't having with them SAT scores.
I wouldn't tell my daughter that. Put it that way. She's a junior next year, so I'm not telling her that. So no, I got accepted to the Kubert School, and right out of high school, we drove up because I grew up in Maryland, so it wasn't a far drive. We drove up to Dover, New Jersey. I interviewed with Joe and got accepted. I ended up taking a year off after high school, so I called him back and said, I appreciate it. Will that acceptance hold until the following year? So I want to take a year off. And they were like, definitely. So I started the Kubert School in 1988. In my senior year, I remember showing up for the first day, and I heard that second year students had a new teacher, and it was Bart Sears. And I was like, what? Because he was like, I was buying all his stuff. I was a fan of his work. Bart started in comics, I believe, in like 1987. In my senior year, it was 1990. So he was, he was still only like 4 years in, but, I loved his work. So I basically just said, well, I don't care if he's teaching second year only or not. I'm a third year student. I'm meeting this guy. So I went down to one of his classes before it started and just introduced myself, showed him some of my work. I guess he liked it because, we became fast friends. He would kind of tutor me after school and stuff with some of my homework assignments. He didn't live too far away from the school at the time, so I would go over to his place, and while he was working on Justice League Europe at the time, I would just work on homework. It was probably around the spring of '91 that he let me draw some backgrounds in Justice League Europe, some buildings and stuff. Nothing hard, of course. Just, hey, you want to draw some buildings? I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
And then, I was working up sample pages because that's what you do in third year. And he would give me critiques and stuff. And then at one point, he thought I was, I guess, ready. And he's like, you want to come up to DC with me? And I was like, yeah. And this was like February or March of '91. And we went up to DC and he introduced me to his editor, which was Andy Helfer at the time. And, Andy gave me some notes and basically, back, like I said, it was '91. You could roam the halls if you were a professional at that time, no problem. Compared to now, going through, security and all that stuff. Right. Back then, once you got in, you could just roam the halls, knock on an editor's door, be like, hey, do you mind if I, have 5 minutes of your time? So I talked to Brian Augustin, like I said, Andy Helfer, Kevin Dooley, who was Andy's assistant. They all gave me some critiques, some notes. So I went home, worked up some more sample pages over the course of a few weeks. I went back up with Bart, talked to Mike Carlin. Mike liked what he saw, but he said he just didn't have anything. But he was sharing an office with an editor at the time named Dan Raspler, and he's like, Dan, you want to take a look at this guy's stuff? And Dan was like, yeah. So Dan looked at it, was like, yeah, this looks good. This looks good. He's like, I'll give you an inventory story. And I don't even think they do inventory stories anymore. But back then, an inventory story was, what it sounds like. It was just the job they had. They wanted to get the whole book pencil, inked, lettered, colored, put it into a drawer. So if a deadline on that book was running tight, they could be like, don't worry, we got something we can run instead. Because, once again, this is before everybody was getting a previews catalog. So nobody knew if an inventory job came out, nobody was the wiser, like, wait a second, preview, comic book research, coming out this week.
You're not interrupting.
That is interesting. I never knew about the inventory story.
Yeah, so it was a Suicide Squad job written by John Ostrander. And the funny thing is, I also give Dan a lot of credit, one, for hiring me, because you look back at your first job and you just cringe. Two, because this was in March and I didn't graduate until May. So I wasn't, I'm not going to show him that I'm kind of stressed, like, oh, now I got to draw this, which is awesome, but I got to do my schoolwork to graduate.
Yeah.
And Dan was like, look, man, you need to graduate school. It's an inventory job. I'm not giving you a rough deadline. In fact, let's not even talk about a deadline until you graduate. So I guarantee you got the job. I'll get you the script in the next couple of weeks so you can just sit on it until you graduate. Let's talk when you graduate. And so basically on May 18th, I think I graduated. I packed up all my junk, moved back in with my parents in Maryland. Luckily, they had an extra bedroom set aside that I could set a desk up in, and talked to Dan, got it was like a 2-month deadline, and just started, drawing the book. He had a couple changes here and there. I didn't have to. It's funny because I talk to guys now that are working for, Marvel and DC, and they're like, oh yeah, I submit layouts and have to get layouts approved. There was none of that.
Yeah.
It was just a different time back then, which makes me sound so old.
Yeah.
But it was, you got hired based on your samples, and they trusted you. And he wasn't checking in with me, weekly or anything. Like I said, it was like a 2-month deadline. It was a 22-page job, so it was less than, 5 pages a week I had to do. So, I mean, I would get pages done, and I'd go to Kinko's, copy them, fax them up. I think out of 22 pages, he had maybe 2 or 3 changes, like to a panel, like, just, change this, or I don't remember what they were, but it was minor stuff. And then after that, I would try and, I knew it was good to show your face, and Maryland's not too far, so I would, I basically finished the job and went right up to DC and showed it around, and Kevin Dooley gave me some Justice League Quarterly stuff, which was an anthology book, so it was like 12-page stories, and I did that for 4 or 5 issues, maybe 6. And then he gave me the first Green Lantern annual. There was never a Green Lantern annual till this point.
Wow.
So, and Green Lantern wasn't the huge A-lister he is now. But I got to do the first Green Lantern annual, and that was daunting because it was 56 pages.
Did you do the whole thing?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's great, though. You got a job, You're still just going to school. And
so I always knock on wood, because I've been working steady ever since. And from there, I went to Marvel, and the backtrack, Suicide Squad was never printed. They never needed to run the inventory. So it was about 10 years, 11 years later, a FedEx shows up at my house from DC, a box. And I'm like, I'm not expecting any art returns. What is this? I opened it up, all 22 pages of my pencils.
Wow.
They didn't get lettered, but they had all the word balloon placements that Dan did in blue pencil, scribbled in.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So it never got lettered. It never got inked. So I looked at him once, and this was like around 2001. I looked at him once, cringed, because at this point, I was in the business for 10 years. So my art grew, and I was like, oh, I put it back in the box, taped the box shut, wrote Suicide Squad first job, and it's still in my closet.
Oh, wow.
Let's crack that baby open.
Yeah.
It's been sealed. I know exactly where it is, and it's been sealed since 2001.
Yeah, when you were speaking about the whole thing with breakdowns, I only was asked to do that once, and it was my only book that I did for Marvel. And I wonder if it was almost like an insult to me, like, oh yeah, dude, this is after She and stuff, and got to do a book, and they're like, yeah, the editor wants you to do breakdowns, and I even talked to, no one else was doing breakdowns, and
Sure.
by then I had lost 3 Eisners, and I was like, wait a minute, dude, I'm like, all right. So there was some, I think it might have been a little dig to me, because I don't know how prevalent it is now, but I hadn't had to do that since myself. But I had done that, my first thing for Marvel, I'd been in the industry for over 10 years myself, and I was like, what the hell, self-publishing and doing, self-publishing over 100 books or so myself, and I was like, wait a minute, is this kind of.
When they consider your stuff. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, if for that first Suicide Squad job, Dan hired me off of like 8 pages of samples. That's all he saw my stuff. 8 pages of samples, 4 pages. It was 2 4-page shorts. 4 pages I wrote myself. That was like a Justice League thing. And then 4 pages, this was advice somebody gave me, because once again, back then it wasn't that easy to get scripts. I mean, now you just Google it. You can get scripts to anything.
Yeah.
To practice. Yeah. But back then it wasn't easy. And a friend of mine, or not a friend of mine, but a teacher at the school, and it wasn't Bart, it was somebody else, suggested take a comic book. And he said, don't take like Superman, or, don't take an A-list book. So take a comic and basically find a 4 to 5 page sequence that you like, that you think would make good samples, and then write out or type out panel descriptions for each panel, like a script. And he said, take the comic and just throw it to the side, and don't even start for about a week, so you get it out of your head. Go back to your typed out script, and treat it like a real script.
Wow.
And that's what I did. And I did it with 4 to 5 pages of an issue of Starman. And this is the superhero Starman, this is way before James Robinson, Tony Harris stuff. This was when Roger Stern and Tom Lyle were doing the book. It was that Starman from the 80s. And that's what I did. So then when the editor asked, because they, at least back then, they would ask, well, did you write these samples yourself? Because if you do, you have a tendency to try and take shortcuts because you're writing what you can do.
Yeah.
I said, nope, this is 4 pages from Starman number blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, okay, cool.
All right. Yeah.
but like the point is, if they would have said, oh, no, man, if Dan would have said, we need to see layouts, it's your first job, I would have said, oh, yeah, no problem. But yeah, dude, 10 years in with a big body of work, it's kind of like, I mean, you see what I do.
I dig. I'm going to talk to some people. I'm going to see some friends this weekend at a convention. I'm going to ask them that we're involved in that project. And I'm sure they'll just laugh. Like, oh, yeah, it was a dig to you.
Yeah.
Anyway, now, you mentioned, you said something really interesting earlier about that, when we all drew as kids and then some kids stop. Isn't it interesting up to like 5th grade or so, maybe even 6th grade? A lot of kids all draw the same still. And then some of those just stop and then some can continue. So as a child, what inspired you to draw in regards to comics? Like,
it's funny. When I was in elementary school, I've always been kind of a car buff. I just love cars.
Mm-hmm.
And in elementary school, and I probably still have some somewhere, all I drew were cars. So, like, I like to draw.
Mm-hmm.
So I would draw cars because I collected Matchbox cars and Hot Wheels and whatever. So I would just look at them at different angles and draw them and stuff. And then, and I can still remember this vividly, I remember watching an episode of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And it was an episode, and that was Spider-Man, Iceman, and Firestar. And it guest starred the X-Men, and I was just like blown away by it.
Oh, okay.
Until this point, I was watching, Bugs Bunny and, that stuff.
Yeah.
And up until this point, I didn't collect comic books either. So this was like my first thing. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And something switched in my head because I was like, well, somebody's got to draw this stuff. So at that point, I switched over and just started to try to draw superheroes. And coming home from school one day, there was a 7-Eleven on the way home. So I stopped in, and they had their comics racked with the magazines on the magazine shelf, not a spin rack. And there was this issue of Captain America, it was 275 by Mike Zeck and John Beatty. And the cover was just Cap leaping at you with bullet holes behind him and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, man, I got to get this. So I bought that. I subscribed to it. It came in the brown wrapper, that brown sleeve.
Yeah.
Which I wish I still had, the sleeves. And I just fell in love with comic books and was like, this is what I want to do for a living.
Yeah.
And that was it. And, I still have I still have that whole run of Caps from back then. And, once again, Billy, I'm sure you can attest, it's, now you're into business. I get into the business in 91. I moved to Florida like 2 weeks after I moved home from the Kubert school. I was like, well, I've got this job. I'm sure I'll get more. I'm moving to Florida.
Yeah.
So I literally got an apartment sight unseen in Orlando and drove down and moved down there because I had friends there. And, back in the day, a 1-bedroom apartment in Orlando was running me $500. I was driving a 1977 beat up Chevy something, Monte Carlo, I think. So no car payment. There was no cell phone, no internet, none of that stuff. All I had was, $500 for rent, whatever electricity was.
Mm-hmm.
Cable TV was dirt cheap back then. And that was it, So I looked at what my page rate was, and I did the math, and I'm like, well, if I do 5 pages a week, I can do this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. And within 2 months of being in Florida, and this wasn't planned or anything, it was just coincidental, John Beatty lives in Orlando. And I met John, and John was the guy that was inking Captain America, the first comic I ever bought, like 12 years earlier, 10 years earlier. John and I started sharing a studio. So now I'm working with this guy whose stuff I was trying to teach myself to ink from.
Yeah.
Wow.
How did you guys meet? How did you meet him? Was it at the offices or something?
No, I met him at their, Orlando at the time had these hotel cons.
Mhm.
It wasn't like a mega con or anything. It was just a hotel convention. And John was a guest. And I somehow contacted the organizer, and he's like, yeah, sure, you can set up. No problem. And I was sitting next to John. So I just introduced myself. We started talking, and we were birds of a feather. We got along like right off the bat. We clicked.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, yeah, I live in Orlando. And I was like, oh, so do I. And we exchanged addresses and numbers. And he was like literally 10 minutes from where I moved. And we'd start going out to lunch. And then we started talking about getting a studio because, working at home is solitary. So
Yeah.
some cheap office space and got a studio together. And Jim Sanders was part of the studio, who was an anchor back at the time. And Brad Venkata was part of the studio. Rick Levins was part of the studio. He was drawing Captain America at the time. A bunch of different guys. I mean, the studio got kind of big, and then in '93 I moved up to Syracuse.
All right. Well, I'm just curious about the studio. Now, was it like in a warehouse? Was it an office building? And you had your own art tables? Did you have dividers? Did you share reference? What's it like?
It was an office park. So just the generic, Florida, nothing's more than, these office parks in Florida are like 2 stories tops.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a 2-story big office park. We had 2 rooms. So you'd walk in the front door, or you go up the stairs, go down the hallway, and there's just doors on the left, left and right of the halls. You walked into ours, and there was it's probably like a 10 by 12 front room. And then the back room was same size, 10 by 12. It's just there was a wall dividing it. So the back room, because it just started off with John, Jim Sanders, and myself, just 3 of us, we just brought our art tables from home and set them up in the back room. John had a copy machine, so he brought that over for the front room, and we put a little couch in the front room with a mini fridge. And, we all were like, the good thing about all 3 of us, too, is we all like to work the normal like day hours.
Yeah.
Because, well, I was single at the time, but John had a live-in girlfriend, and he was kind of like, well, she works during the day, so I might as well work during the day so I can be with her at night.
Yeah.
So we always rolled in around 8:30 every day, and would stay till about 5. And if we had a deadline that crushed it, we'd stay later into the night if we had to, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But we just did that, and I think the rent at the place was like $300.
Oh wow.
So cheap.
That's cheap, man.
We even got them once we had more people want to come in. We got them to knock the wall down. So then it opened up to like a 12 by 24, so we could fit 6 people in total.
Nice.
And we called it Asylum Studios. And it was, it was fun because like on a couple of the Justice League jobs I did, Justice League quarterly jobs, I was doing my own inking on my pencils. So like, hey, Jim, you want to ink a panel? Jim Sanders, sure. So Jim would ink a panel. Jim was inking Silver Sable, which was a Marvel book at the time, over Stephen Butler. And he was behind the gun. So I inked 2 pages of an issue. John inked like 2 or 3 pages of an issue. We never told the editor, just sent him in. Jim just paid us out of his pocket. John was working on Batman with Kelly Jones at the time, and I inked a couple of pages of Kelly Jones Batman, that nobody knew about. I've told Kelly since then.
Yeah.
Because we had similar inking styles. It was, if my inking style was like Klaus Janson, there's no way that would have ever worked.
Yeah.
But it just so happened that all 3 of us were slick brush type inkers, so we could see the difference, but an editor never said boo.
Yeah, I love working in brush. I'm fascinated with the Crow Quill pens,
Mm-hmm.
But I got to tell you, for 30 plus years, I don't know how to use them still. I can never get the ink to stay. I could, what I mean? It dried. I'm just and I get aggravated with it because I'm like, oh, I want to try this, and I'm like, yeah, right, throw it away.
I first tried to because this was, once again, it was the 90s. So Jim Lee was the man. Well, Jim still is the man, but he was on X-Men, and Scott Williams was inking it, and he was using mostly 102 quill. And I knew other guys using that. I come from a school that I taught myself how to ink with a brush. So I was like, let me try, kind of like you. And I could never do what they did. I mean, my extent with the 102 is I can use it, but it's definitely not that look. It's more of a scritchy, flousy, type look.
Yeah.
So if I want to try and do something that way, I'll pull the 102 out. But no matter what tool I try, because with this website Jet Pens that has all these brush pens and cool markers and stuff, got tons of different ones, man, I always revert back to just the brush and dip brush and ink.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, me too. Even like with the I get them too, like the barrel ones and stuff, and they're nice. And Dave Johnson gave me a Japanese one that I still can't get to work. I can't get the damn thing to plug or something. No one seems to be able to figure it out. But same thing with me. I like it, that round number one line brush. I'll use a number two, but I just like that number one, and just, I guess because I love Kubert so much. I love that organic, look to Silver Age stuff and Golden Age,
Oh, totally. I do have this one pen that I found, and I found it through Cliff Chang, and I was hesitant to buy it. It's a fountain pen, but the nib spreads. Now, most fountain pens you buy, the nib doesn't spread. It's just a dead weight. But the nib on this actually spreads, and it spreads. Well, they make an extra fine, a fine, and a medium. So I bought the extra fine. Like I said, the nib actually spreads. I've had it for probably 2 years. It's never clogged.
Yeah.
And here's one of the reasons why. It's the best pen I've ever got. It's $170.
Yeah, well, you get what you pay for.
But that's just it. It's a gold-plated nib. It's this other artist, a guy named Nick Meglin. He was an old school guy. He just passed away a few years ago, but he was friends with Frazetta. He was the editor at Mad Magazine for a long time. He also had that pen, and he's part of the National Cartoonist Society, and I belong to that as well. And every year, so there's the National Cartoonist Society, but there's also sub-chapters for the different regions of the country. So my sub-chapter is Southeast because I live in North Carolina. So every year there's a meeting of the Southeast chapter. So people from basically Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, we all gather someplace. We have a meeting, go over dues, whatever. We have guest panelists, so on and so forth. So one of the meetings was at SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick was down there. Jack Davis was down there.
Oh, cool.
I think his name's Paul Coker. He's the guy that did the designs on the Frosty the Snowman from 50-year-old Frosty the Snowman.
Cool.
He designed a Mad Magazine artist. So that's another reason I went. So I'm like, man, I got to meet Jack Davis. I got to meet this guy that designed Frosty the Snowman and all that. He did all the old designs for that stop motion stuff. And if you look at his Mad Magazine stuff, that's his style.
Yeah.
Anyhow, back to Nick. Well, Nick also had this fountain pen. And I was like, oh, can I try that? I've heard so much about it. And Nick's like, well, I carry two of them. I carry one that I let people try because people always ask.
Yeah.
I carry one that nobody's allowed to touch but me because they're $170.
Yeah.
If I break it, then it's on me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, I mean, you can get, with the extra fine, it's pretty much like a 102, Hunt 102 point. But with the medium point, you can get a pretty fat line out of it.
Oh, okay.
So if you've got the money to spare, it's called a Pilot Namiki fountain pen. They're on Amazon. That's where I got mine.
Mm-hmm.
Namiki? Like, how do you spell it?
Namiki, N-A-M-I.
K-I, maybe? Amiki Pilot?
M-I-K-I.
So what do you prefer? Which number do you like?
Well, I only have one because of the expense. I keep telling myself, because I've had
That's number one.
now. I I've had it for 2 years, and I've got the extra fine. The extra fine, I tell you, man, for small faces and tiny details, it's great. For bigger stuff, it's great for real fine line rendering. If you really want to get some nice subtle lines, it works great with the French curve. It works great with a ruler. The ink is fantastic. Like I said, I have, because I love fountain pens. So I have fountain pens that cost like $30. And I tell you, if that thing sits, or if a $30 fountain pen, if I don't use it every day, within 5 days, I have to run it underwater so it unclogs. This Namiki I've had for 2 years has never clogged.
Oh, wow.
We'll
have to find that and get a link into the description.
Yeah.
Check Amazon for Pilot Namiki flexible fountain pen.
Flexible.
Yeah, you definitely got to make sure it's the flexible one, because like I said, most fountain pens aren't flexible. And yeah, so it's basically the having a quill pen that you don't have to dip.
Nice.
So Andy, I'm seeing a lot of comments here. A lot of fans are liking your Exo Man of War, saying that it's tops mate. Brian, Lou said, your Exo Man of War is tops mate. Brian Blevins said, Andy Smith, how did you enjoy working for Valiant as opposed to Marvel and DC? Your Exo stuff was great! 4 exclamation points and a smiley face.
Yeah. The thing with Valiant was, what happened was, it was during their birthquake, where they hired Dan Jurgens from DC to do Solar. They hired Rags Morales to do Turok. They hired Bernard Chang was doing The Visitor, and they were putting the books out twice a month. So I can't remember who was like switching off with like Dan and the other guys I mentioned, but for Exo it was Bart and myself. And one of the reasons Bart was hired first, because a few years, I think 3 or 4 years before that, he already had a stint at Valiant doing 2 issues of Exo, and then he launched Turok #1, which sold 1 million+ copies, whatever. So when they did Birthquake, they reached out to him and said, "Hey, we're doing this Birthquake. We're relaunching all the books. We want you to do Exo. We're doing it twice a month." And at the time, Bart and I were sharing a studio together up in Syracuse, so it was kind of a natural fit because our styles were so interwoven. And part of it was because for almost a full year at the Hubert School, I had him as my main mentor / tutor.
Yeah.
Teaching me how to draw, and I'd show him something. He'd put tracing paper over it and go, "You should, this is how I do it. Try this." So it was one of those things that I've had to clear up over the years, where people would be like, "Oh, you would just copy Bart." And it's like, well, there are guys that got to start copying other artists, but with me, it was different because I literally had him as a teacher for, basically one-on-one private tutoring sessions for a year.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then we kept in touch, and, he was probably my biggest influence because of that. So with Exo, they were like, "Man, it'd be great to have both you guys do it because we want to have a consistent look to the books." So he would do 2 issues, I would do 2 issues, he would do 2 issues, and so on and so forth. Working for Valiant was great. Ron Mars was the writer, and Ron and Bart and I at this point knew each other. I think that was '94. So at the time, Bart and I, we first met in '88, or not '88, but '90. So we knew each other for 4 years. I met Ron in like '92 when I went over to Marvel. So we all knew each other, and the editor on the book used to be an editor at Marvel, and she came over to Valiant. So it was kind of like working for Marvel, honestly, because of the people we were working with. That's the pen.
That's the pen, yes.
Frank Amazing find it?
Frank Amazing found it.
There you go. Frank, I don't have my old man glasses on. It does say flexible, right?
Yes.
Cool. What size is that one? Oh, there it is.
Fountain pen. This is the soft medium.
That's the medium. That's the medium. So that's 142. So what I was saying is I've had mine for 2 years now. So now that I know it's a really good pen, I got my money's worth out of it and still
Yeah.
am. I might drop the coin to get another one so I can have a fatter nib to do different effects.
Wow, some of these are like $238, $293. These must be some really good
like I said,
pens.
fountain pens, you can go to Target and you can get a fountain pen for $3.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't do anything with it artistically, but I mean, you can do it. I take that back. As Joe Kubert said, you can pick up a stick and use it with ink if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I have fountain pens that are $3 that I've used on pages, but if you want a nice flexible one, that's one.
Yeah, so the fine nib is $120.
Yeah. Yeah,
What about the extra fine?
That's extra
that.
fine is $113, but I think they're out.
Oh.
Yeah, back in stock on June 5th, guys, if you're interested.
Well, that's not gold either, though.
No,
But
this isn't gold.
Cliff
If you
Chang.
haven't- and if any fans out there want to buy us pens,
Yeah.
Our P.O. box is...
tell your parents, go to their pocketbook, to your mommy's pocketbook,
If anybody
Take
from
out
Pop-
and
watching,
you could send it to comics at blah, 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 blah.
Send it to our P.O. box.
Yeah.
P.O.
But I
box,
believe-
give me stuff.
I believe Cliff Chang inked most of his Wonder Woman stuff with it, if I remember him telling me properly.
Yeah, I got to get one of these. I am so curious about this. I'd love to work on the new She book with this.
I remember, you
I
know,
think you'll like.
I was using fountain pens when I was very young. I remember going to Staples, and I don't know what I saw, but I saw some artist using a fountain pen. I was probably like 6 years old. And I said to my mom, I was like, I need that. And I had that, and that's what I would ink with, is fountain pens.
That's how it was for me. One of the first professional artists I ever met when I was a kid, my dad would drive me to the show in Baltimore, above Baltimore, a town called Towson. And Tom Lyle lived up there. So he was the first professional comic book artist I ever met when I was like 14 or 15. And he was inking commissions. I'll never forget it, but I've never, ever seen one of these. It was a rapidograph, a Koh-i-Noor rapidograph, but it was a fountain pen. It had a nib on the end of it.
Yeah.
And that's what he was inking commissions with. And it would, it would spread some, it would flex some.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that is awesome. So I guess that's where I got it. And even to this day, because we're still friends and stuff, I'll kind of mention it, and it's been over 30 years. And he's like, man, I don't remember. It's not like I can find it now. It's just one of those. It's that Moby Dick. It's like I got to find my white whale.
Yeah.
Even if I were to find it and get it, and I go, wow, this is really garbage. At least I found it.
Yeah.
But I've never, ever, Dick Blick, art catalogs, all the different art stores. I've never seen a rapidograph with that nib. So, whatever. But
eBay.
But yeah, I'd love
Yeah,
if you
for sure.
got it and tell me what you think. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, Valiant was fun. So yeah, it wasn't much of a difference. I mean, the fine thing is, people ask, what's the difference, Marvel, DC? It's just drawing comics. I mean, I haven't really seen a huge. The only thing I can think of is I've never done a DC book from a plot style, old school Marvel style plot. Because as far as I know, DC was pretty much always full script. Whereas when I started at Marvel, which was after DC, because I went from DC to Marvel, I worked with Mark Grunwald on Quasar, and Mark wrote plot style. So for my 10 or 11 issues of Quasar, it was just page one, just a paragraph block of text, and it was up to me to figure out how many panels, what goes on in each panel, and blah, blah, blah. So I did that, which is funny because then you fast forward to about 6 or 7 years ago at San Diego, I was talking to C.V. Sobolski, and then he introduced me to Mark. I'm going to screw his last name up. Mark Panaccia.
Panaccia.
Panaccia, who edits the books. And Mark was like, yeah, I got some oh my God, what was the name of the book called? Chris was writing. Oh, X-Men Forever. He's like, oh, I got a few issues of X-Men Forever I can toss your way. You get to work with Chris Claremont. And I was like, oh my God, that'd be awesome. And then Mark goes, but he writes plot style, not full script. Are you comfortable with that? Have you ever done that? I was like, yeah, about 15, 16 years ago. That was the very first way I started at Marvel. Don't worry about it. And he's like, oh, okay. And yeah, I got Chris's plots, and they weren't bare bones, but it was the same thing, just a paragraph of text for each page, and you figure out how many panels. And I actually talked to Chris online a bit after I got done with the stuff, and knock on wood, was relieved to hear that he was very pleased with what I did with the script. So that was nice. So.
Now, okay, so you get it now. Sorry.
Oh, so what led you then into the realm of the instructional book?
My wife and I just moved to Florida in '97, and I was working for Marvel, and we were unpacking in our apartment, and I still have I can even show it. I still have my nice beat the hell copy of How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way.
Oh, heck yeah. I got mine too.
Yours is hardcover?
Yeah, it's all crap. So,
should we all run and grab our copies?
Yeah.
That's right. So I every now and then when I unpack it, or right now it's next to my desk, I just flip through it for nostalgia. And I was thinking, like, man, because I love going to bookstores, and I was like, I haven't seen an updated type book. Like that was still it.
Mm-hmm.
So I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go to the bookstore. And this is the steps I took. I went to the bookstore and I asked the people there, I said, do you have any books on how to write a book proposal? And they're like, oh, yeah, we sure do. Come over here. So they took me to the section of books where, there were not tons, like 4 or 5 books on how to write a book proposal. So I took out, a notepad and just made key notes from the different chapters on what to include in the book proposal. Went home. I wrote a proposal. I picked Watson Guptill because I went to the how-to book section, the art section of the store, and I saw that most of the how-to books were published by Watson Guptill.
Yeah.
So I just grabbed their information because this was before camera phones and stuff. So I wrote down their address and everything in New York and the editor's name. So like I said, I wrote up a book proposal, printed it out. It was only like a page and a half long because they said you don't want to do more than that because you don't want to bore the person. Mm-hmm. I did a cover letter saying who I am. I draw comics for a living, blah blah blah. Threw in some printed comic books to send up, and I did it priority mail because one of the things I remembered from the Kubert School was they said when you mail in samples, you want to get the editor's attention. So either do it and don't use a vanilla envelope. They probably get tons of them. Mm-hmm. They said, look, if you can afford it, FedEx it, because that'll get their attention.
Right.
If you can't afford FedEx, do priority mail, because that'll get their attention. If you can't do that, pick a freaking weird color envelope, because that'll get their attention.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent up the book proposal to the editor at Watson Guptill, priority mail, 2 days, because I knew it would get there in 2 days. And so I mailed off. My wife goes, so when do you think you'll hear something? And I go, are you kidding me? They get probably tons of these every day. I said, if I hear anything, I'll be surprised. But I'll follow up in like 10 to 14 days. I'll give it time. And then I'll make a phone call. Because once again, I didn't have email or anything. And God's honest truth, 2 days later, I'm at my desk working. Phone rings. I look at it. Had caller ID. I don't know who it is, but you know how it is. As a freelancer, you got to answer the calls because it could be anybody looking for work.
Right.
So I answer it, and the woman goes, is Andy Smith there? And I thought to myself, I don't have time for a solicitor. So I wasn't rude, but you know how you get a solicitor voice?
Yeah.
Right. So I got my solicitor voice, and I go, yeah. She's like, is this Andy Smith? And I go, yeah. What can I do for you? She goes, this is so-and-so from Watson Guptill. And I go, okay. And I totally forgot. This was 2 days to the day I mailed it. I forgot. Oh. And I go, okay. And she goes, we got your book proposal. We love it. We want to do it. Right then my voice went to, oh, hey. Oh, really? And because I was blown away. I mean, I am not kidding. I mailed it. I'm just throwing it out there on a Tuesday. Thursday, I got the call.
Oh, awesome.
And they said they want to do it. They hooked me up with an editor. They gave me a small advance. It's not like I'm Stephen King where they were like, here's tons of money. It was, I don't even mind telling you, it was $5,000 advance, but it was 25 when I start and 25 when I finish. And they gave me a year to do it. Wow. So it's not like it was like, oh, here's this advance that I wanted to live off of. So I had a year, clocked a year from the time I got off the phone with her and got the contract in the mail to, finish date. And I finished it in 98. It came out in 2000, and it went on to, because it's out of print now, but it went on to do 7 printings. It got printed in China and in Spanish.
Wow.
And it, in the long run, if I tally it up, I made good money off of it.
Yeah.
And then my second book was the Drawing American Manga Superheroes, because they were, once they had a hit, they were like, what do you want to do now?
Yeah.
And I was like, honestly, I was kind of like, I was working at CrossGen at the time, so I didn't have tons of time now.
Yeah.
Like going to their office every day and stuff. And I was like, I don't know. So I actually pitched them this hero template idea. I said, well, I kind of like to do a book of just these stock figures that people can draw over. And they were like, nah, we want to do an instructional book. And I was like, all right. So I kind of just blew them off for a couple of years, just saying I was kind of too busy and whatnot. And then in 2003, when CrossGen was going under and I left, I was still talking to them, and I said, all right, I got an idea. So I pitched them the Drawing American Manga Superheroes. And they were like, yeah, it sounds great. Manga's super popular. Superheroes, mix them together. Yeah, let's do it. So I did that. And same thing, had a year to do it. I got a little more of an advance because, the first book did well. And then that one came out. And that actually, I don't know if it was their promotion or what, but it just did one printing. So it was one and done. But I was able to hook up Jeff Johnson with Watson Guptill. So Jeff did a book on how to draw fight scenes, which came out through Watson Guptill probably around the same time, 2005. And he's actually redoing his book now to put it out again with new chapters and stuff.
That's a great idea for a book. I didn't even know about that. That's a great idea.
Well, here's the funny thing, and I'm not like saying, oh, it was because of me, but when my book came out in 2000, there was only, I think, 1 or 2 other books out on drawing comic books. It was the Marvel Way, it was mine, and then Chris Hart, who does it. He makes his living off of how-to books.
Yeah.
Had one out on how to draw comic books. After mine came out, and with the industry just blowing up, I mean, there were books coming out left and right. Like, there's so many books out there now on how to draw comic books. It's not even funny. But if you can find a niche, to pitch, or if you're like some of the books I see out there, I'm not going to disparage them at all, but I've never heard of the person that wrote them.
I know a lot of them are like that. Yeah. Right.
A lot of them are like that, and I'm like a sucker for those books. I always just like, once I see one, I'm always perusing through, just see if there's something because I'm a lot of stuff I do is self-taught, and I kind of dependent on a lot of these books or some of the work people have done. And I actually have your book. I remember buying it in 2000 or so at Walden's Books, which isn't even around anymore. Nope. And then the Chris Hart book you're talking about too. I think I probably bought them both at the same time. But I mean, nowadays, like, you'll start seeing there's just all of these books. A lot of it's kind of repetitive too. Like, a lot of the books have kind of like the same information. But yeah, a lot of it, I'm like, I don't even know who these people are.
Well, and like you said, I'm the same way. I love how-to books. I still buy them. And the thing I found is even the worst book, and I still buy them. I won't buy ones that I think are just awful. But let's say I think it's mediocre. If I'm flipping through it and there's just like a couple little nuggets, I'll buy the book because it's just those couple little things because I think it's cool,
Yeah.
I love how-to books. Like I said, I still do. I got years ago the famous artist cartoon course from the 50s. That course is just, I mean, we're talking Milk Caniff, guys like that. And if you've never seen the famous artist cartoon course from the 50s, you can actually get it for free online.
Really?
Wow.
Google the famous artist cartoon course, and now this was a few years back, but you can find a PDF of every chapter. And then if you want, you can download it. And this is how I got it. So it's not like I had the original cartoon courses. I found it online. I downloaded every PDF, and I spent the money and went to Kinko's and had each one printed out and bound.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I think I'm going to do that too.
A 3-volume set?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
How much did that run you?
What's that?
How much did that run you?
Well, I just did black and white copies.
Well, if you'd like some first edition ones on Amazon, it's $794 for all 3.
Yeah, there you go. But they're fantastic. They got sections on inking. They've got chapters, like one lesson is just on inking. And the cool thing is you read through it, and there's the homework in the back that they gave the person, because all that stuff was mail-in.
Yeah.
Cool.
You can actually see what their assignments were. So they've got lettering, inking, drawing women, drawing people, some storytelling stuff. I mean, it still holds up today.
I'm still waiting for the chapter on drawing a bath.
Well, drawing what?
A bath. Sorry.
I get it.
Sorry.
I drawn one of those in years.
Actually, you know what I came across? The Kubert School has like a home.
I've got those too.
Yeah, I was on eBay. I happened to see them, and they're actually pretty expensive. You can still buy them from the Kubert School. I mean, it costs like a couple grand. And I happened to be on eBay one day. Like, I wonder if anyone has these. What's that?
Not that. You can buy what they finally did was when they first came out.
Yeah.
It was 11 by 17 instruction book because it had blank pieces of Bristol in it.
Yeah.
As well. And then it came with a VHS tape. That's how long ago.
Wow.
Well, I have the DVDs.
Right. So
Wow.
now they do the DVDs, but I don't know if it's something they do all the time or if they just run a special a few times a year, but they'll run a special, or like I said, maybe if you go to their website, you have the option where you can buy the course without any feedback. So they would just send you the DVD and the course book and you're on your own. And that's
Correct.
like,
They still do that, yeah. But it's still it's still like a G.
like, no, dude, it's like $150.
Really? I went on and looked, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is expensive."
No.
And then I saw the options. Then I went on eBay, and I was like, "Oh, how much?" And I got it for like $150, the whole thing with the DVDs.
Yeah, no, they're not, I'm almost positive because I think the course with feedback is only like $350, $400. I mean, I could be wrong. It's been a while since I checked.
Frank Amazing on that.
Right.
It's we're
But
doing
yeah,
an instructional
I
show.
got
This
those as well.
Yeah.
And you're never too old to learn. So some of you guys out there, I see Peter Palmiotti was here, guys been making comics for, 25, 30 years, you're never too old to learn.
Never.
That's one reason, one of the reasons, well, when I collected comics as a kid and to this day, there are books I read, but then I still just follow artists.
Yeah.
So I'll go pick up a book just because of a specific artist. And yeah, I'll read it because I'm not just going to buy it and be like, well, I like the guy's art. I'm not going to read it. No, I'll read it. But there's also the point when, let's say the artist leaves the book, if it's not a great storyline, I'm out.
Yeah.
But the reason I did it then and the reason I do it now is just to, I guess, try to stay current and learn things. See what my contemporaries, my peers are doing, because you can learn from anything.
Yep.
Even newspaper strip guys, because I know a few newspaper strip guys from being in National Cartoonist Society, and you can just pick stuff up from everywhere.
Yep.
Okay, I have an update on the Kubert School home courses.
Okay.
Originally, with the critiques, it was $1,284. They're running a deal right now for $1,050. And
Is that
then
course or just one?
this is the complete set of 6 corresponding courses with critiques.
That's the whole
Yeah,
set. Yeah.
that's the whole set. Yeah. Then the complete set of 6 course books and DVDs. This is without any critiquing of your work. Is $534, but they're doing a special right now for $300. And then
Yeah,
like
that's
each
pretty
individual
good.
book's about $90.
Yeah, so that's what I was talking. I was
Yeah.
talking about individually.
Oh yeah, no, I was
guess I'll-
talking the whole set. You gotta have the whole
Oh,
set.
okay. Yeah, I didn't know they did that with the whole set. So that's cool though.
Yeah,
But
it
still,
is.
when you think about it, not wanting to go somewhere, because how many people take online classes now, you know?
Yeah,
It's
sure.
huge.
So if you don't want to leave your home and you want to get feedback from professional guys that teach up there, you know, 1,200 is not bad.
It's not
For all
bad
that.
at all. Not
Nope.
bad at all. And you
just
can,
got to time it.
you know, a lot of these schools now, I mean, you can do your whole course, you know. Unfortunately, a lot of them are, you know, when it comes to comics, animation, video game development, a lot of them are for-profit schools that do the big
Sure.
home programs. But again, I guess it's what you make of it. But a lot of them now are offering it. Even some of the independent art schools. I mean, you know, they're starting to look into some of these online programs as well. But you still have to submit a portfolio.
Right.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of this year, I'd say, I think it lasted from February to May, and it was, you know, at your own pace. But there's that school in California, and I'll screw the name up, Gnomon, Gnomon,
Mm-hmm.
I think is spelled. And that school is all about, you know, digital art. And, I mean, they do traditional art too, but it's like, you know, character design, concept design,
Mm-hmm.
matte painting, creature design, 3D sculpting, all that stuff. And they do these master classes, and the master classes have 10 artists, and they, you know, 10 different courses. And the master class I took, the reason I took it is because Andy Park, of who, you know, got his start in comics doing Tomb Raider for Top Cow and stuff for Marvel, who's now one of the head concept artists for Marvel Studio. Designing, like he was the lead designer on Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain Marvel. You know, he does the character designs, not environments, but just the character designs and stuff. And I love his digital painting.
Mm-hmm.
I love his work. So I was at, you know, I've been talking to Andy, you know, online, and at San Diego last year we talked and stuff. I've known him for a few years. So he sent me this link at the beginning of the year saying, hey, I'm doing this master class with these 9 other guys, and we're all doing different things. And basically you signed up, and for the first 2 weeks of the class, you actually could get feedback from each instructor on the forums. So you could you could follow their videos, do a painting or whatever it was they were teaching, upload it, and get actual feedback from the instructor for the first 2 weeks. And then after that, you had, I think, 8 more weeks that the videos were still up, so you could keep going back and looking at them, because each course was probably about 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
And the video broken up into, like, each artist, like Andy, broke his video up into chapters. So, like, you know, the initial sketch, the initial design, rendering the design, finishing, adding details, because he did character design, of course.
Yeah.
So I was like, hell yeah, I'll take that course, because when it comes to digital painting, you know, I'm a baby learning to crawl.
Yeah.
It's tough. I give a lot of credit to colorists, man. I don't know how they do it, but I watch them, and it's like all of a sudden they're like doing some color here and some color here, some color here. Then they start moving the layers, and boom, they've got this like amazing colored page. It's unbelievable.
Well, just when you see how many layers some of these guys,
I know. It's insane.
Freaks me out. It does.
Right?
Now, okay, so Andy, now that you have this book about, you know, designing characters, you know, I mean, you know, to help people design their own characters with all your various body types and head types. Is there a character that you enjoy drawing the most? Like, which is a great character design to you?
Well, I mean, I'm always partial to the original Green Lantern design, the Gil Kane, not when he had the red like blouse on.
Yeah.
From the 40s, but Gil Kane design.
1940, yeah.
And not the first Gil Kane design where the green came like here, but when he developed it more to where it came down on his deltoid and then wrapped around.
Yeah.
I've always liked that design because, you know, the silhouette of it when the part of his costume that's black is knocked out, You look at the green; it's kind of has a lantern feel to it, and it's just sleek. I like costumes that are, form meets function. So I haven't done many costume designs, but when I do, I don't try to just throw stuff on just to throw stuff on. I mean, look, there's one character in Ominous Press, I'm doing a book, Demigod, and there's a character named the Gray. So, part of his design is he has some pouches, not a ton of them, but he does have them, but they're there for a reason. He has body armor on certain parts of his body for a reason because of how he fights and stuff.
Yeah.
But I've always liked Green Lantern, Captain America. I tell you, one of the things, and that shows I'm getting old. One of the things is I still love those characters, and I like the way Green Lantern looks now. But at Marvel, with like Captain America and some of the other heroes, where they're not totally doing what they look like in the movies, but they're adding some of those details.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, I got to draw a page here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason costumes were designed the way they were back in the day, it's because these guys had to get the work done.
Yeah.
Sequential art. It's got to move quick. You got pages to get done.
I drew they did a 4-part intro to the first Avenger, Captain America movie. And I drew an 11-page, it was 4 chapters, and I drew one chapter, 11 pages. And when I got the script and I read it, I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. But I was kind of bummed because Captain America was only on like 3 pages.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I had to draw his movie costume. And after drawing it once, I was like, yeah, I'm good with only 3 pages.
Yeah.
Because of all the stuff. I mean, it was the movie costume from First Avenger.
Yeah.
And it had all those straps and the stuff that stuck off and all this stuff. And I was like, looking back and forth so much. I was like, man.
Well, look at Iron Man. I mean, now it's like you got every little screw and bolt being drawn on him. I mean, it's so detailed. Before it was just kind of like he was, he kind of had the mask and he was Iron Man, but it still almost looked like it was still like his body parts. There was no screws in this and hoses and all this stuff.
I was at the comic shop today because it's Wednesday and I go every Wednesday. I still got that in me. And I was talking to somebody about a commission. They were asking me, how much are my commission prices for like a single figure. So I gave them the prices and stuff. But I always have this caveat now because this happened to me at a convention. The guy brought up a blank sketch cover, an Avengers blank sketch cover. And he's like, oh, I just, one figure on a sketch cover. How much? This is a couple years ago. And I don't remember what I said, but, I gave him the price. And I said, who are you looking to have done? And he said the Hulkbuster armor. And I said, oh, wait a second. I said, that's a different price.
Yeah.
And he goes, why? And I said, because it's the Hulkbuster armor.
Yeah.
I said, I thought you were going to say like Thor or Captain America or regular Iron Man. But, dude, Hulkbuster? That's not an easy thing to draw. That thing's going to take most of my day.
Yeah.
So he ended up going with Spider-Gwen instead.
Yeah.
See, there you go. That's more like it.
Which, so now when I tell people commission prices, I go, the starting price is this, but we're talking like a Superman, Batman, Captain America dude, Spider-Man. But if you're telling me Hulkbuster or 1990s Cable where he had all the crap thrown on him, which I thought looked cool, that's what's going to be a little more because that takes a lot more time.
Absolutely. My God.
So if you guys don't mind, actually, I want to get back into because you've done. So you've had your first 2 drawing books. You also did. It's like a notebook.
Oh, the How to Draw a Superhero Sketchbook.
Yes, the How to Draw a Superhero Sketchbook. Now, is that still available?
Yeah, that I actually did in partnership with a guy named Mark Kokovec. And his website is renderdemo.com if you want to pull it up for people to see. Because what happened was I was just going through Kickstarter one day a couple years ago, and he just like the whole concept of the sketchbook is his baby.
Yes.
And he had one up. He's got 4 of them now, or maybe 5. I think mine was 4. And the the one I saw on Kickstarter was how to draw figures. And how to draw figures was, like it said, it was how to draw realistically proportioned, figures. So we're talking, a normal person is like 6 heads high, not the heroic 8 or 9, whatever. But I still liked it. I'm looking at through the sketchbook, and I love the idea of he calls it a phase out method, where basically it's like learning to ride a bike because you're taking the training wheels off. So the way the sketchbook is set up is it starts off with basically full drawings that I did, but then as the book progresses, he eliminates lines from the drawing, so you have to fill in more of it as you go along and learn. And you draw right in the book. So you can just carry it with you, you grab a pencil, that's all you need. So I backed his Kickstarter, the How to Draw Figures, and then I contacted him and said, hey, this is who I am. Would you want to do one on superheroes? And he was like, that would be awesome. Because his How to Draw Figures one, he worked with an artist. Now, he also has one on how to design athletic shoes, because that's what he does for a living. He's actually one of the head designers at New Balance.
Wow.
That's
up
cool.
in Boston, where they're located. So he went to a concept design school for a living, or for schooling after high school. He went to I can't remember the school, but it was all about concept design and car design. So his first 2 books, the one is How to Design Cars, or How to Draw Cars sketchbook, and then he did How to Draw Athletic Shoes. Those he did, because that's his forte. And then he did the How to Draw Figures with a different artist. And then I pitched him the superhero one. He liked it. So we, got together, and he handles all the printing and stuff. So yeah, it's still available. It's just through his website. I mean, I have it on mine too, because I do have some copies of it. But that was his concept. It's he has bundles and stuff, it looks like. Yep. We're in talks to do a new one. And we're still trying to decide on like the theme of what we want the new one to be. His last one, I believe, was basically how to draw fundamentals, which was basic shapes and just the real basics of drawing. It's actually probably should have been his first one, he said in hindsight, but it's out there now, or it will be soon.
Hey, so, night, pal. See you, pal. Yeah. So my son's going to bed. What you doing? Talking to Mr. Andy Smith. Say hi. I don't know if you can see, but there's my hand.
But yeah, so he made these plastic templates as well that you can put down on paper to help out with proportion and things.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Very cool.
He's a really, really cool guy. And like I said, I thought the concept he had was, we've seen, How to Draw Comics the Marvel way. So drawing inside a book isn't anything new. But like I said, this method he has of phasing out the drawing, so it goes from a finished piece and it just gets less and less to where you have to fill in more of the gaps as you move throughout the book. I just thought it was a really ingenious idea. So.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, no, I actually have a book. It's not the same one, but someone did something very similar. And I've never drawn in it, but I did. It was like another Kickstarter, and it's the whole thing. It's like they go through perspective, character design, all that, facial features, anatomy, and it's all in this little blue book with the, elastic that holds it. And one of these days I'll mess in it, but it's really cool. Yours, I'll be honest though, the one that you worked on, no offense to the one I have, but it looks much better. Much better.
Well, I know the one you're talking about, and I know who did it.
Yeah.
And I almost got it, and I have a real hard time buying books that I can't see.
Yeah.
So I look on Mark's site how he shows the inside of the book and stuff. And with the one you're talking about, I couldn't really look through it enough, and I actually saw it in San Diego a few years back and was able to flip through it. And it, the difference is mine is How to Draw Superheroes, and it's male and the female. It's basically the male idealized hero figure and the female idealized hero figure, whereas the book you're talking about is literally like comics from beginning to end. So it's figure, perspective, page layouts, which to me seems like a lot to cram into a book that size.
Correct. And to be honest, if you are a complete beginner, that it's a very overwhelming notebook. I would have to say, because the instructions it give you, it's vague. It's really for like, honestly, I think that book's really for professionals. You want to work on some stuff, work on some different things, some ideas and certain perspectives, work on some character, I would say from someone that's, it's definitely not a beginner's notebook, I would say. But I like how yours is more focused. That one's just broad.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, I just, the few I've done,
copy?
take it from the standpoint of what would 10-year-old or 8-year-old me be able to wrap my head around, right? So, and that's how I try to break the stuff down. I mean, one of the things I've seen, we've all seen the books where it's kind of like step 1 is the stick figure. And then step 2, the dude has like almost all the anatomy there. And then step 3, finished. And I'm like,
draw a circle, right? Remember it says like how to draw something. It's like draw an owl. Draw a circle. Now draw the fucking owl. And
I'm like, dude, you're skipping quite a few steps in here. And as a kid, it really fucks with you because you're like, I'm never going to be able to go from this stick figure to this second stage.
Yeah.
When I did the few books, and even when I teach, every now and then, I really try and I'd rather see 10 steps than 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So then after the notebook, so the next thing you have is the dynamic hero templates, correct?
Yes. And if that fully funds, volume 2 would be, because people have been asking me, what about the females? And I'm like, that's volume 2.
Yeah, we need to get volume. Yep, we need to get volume 2. So we got how many days left? We got 22 days.
So you got 22 days left. You're at a goal, looking for a goal of 5275 right now. You're at 2088.
Yep.
All
so
right.
I mean, it's got time.
You'll get it. Yep.
Yeah.
I have faith, and it's one of those things where I want to make sure the book was done before I did the Kickstarter. So the book, like I said, I went and got this proof made because even though I was looking at everything on screen, and you guys can probably attest to this too, looking at something on screen, a book, but actually flipping through it, I at least catch more flipping through it.
Oh, yes.
So it's worth it to pay this $80 to get this proof made and be able to flip through it and go, oh, I need to adjust this or adjust that. So, I mean, the book's done, and, once it's done, once the campaign's over, I got the printer lined up, and it's ready to just upload the files, basically.
Awesome. All right, now let me, if I may jump in here with this. Now, the book is all completely done. Once your campaign is over in 22 days, you're ready. You're going to go to press. Have you considered doing an Indiegogo campaign to piggyback off of this? And I'll tell you why, because what I did with, we did with our Zombie Sama book, we did a 28-day campaign through Kickstarter, and we raised $32,202. We then followed up with a 2-week Indiegogo campaign, and we raised over $33,000 in 14 days on Indiegogo, and that was without a lot of the big reward levels too. A lot of the ones like have yourself sketch into the book, original art, cover art, things like that. I've become a true believer. Now I'm pretty much new at this, but I'm a quick study. Sure. And I am a true believer in Indiegogo because what I've learned is there are people that will only buy from Kickstarter. There are people that will only buy from Indiegogo. There are some people on Twitter that their photo isn't like a picture of you, hey, Andy Smith. It says boycott Indiegogo.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So have you considered that? Because I think
I probably will. I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I've got nothing against Indiegogo. I've backed things on Indiegogo as well. To me, they're just two different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I probably will. I mean, like you said, this gets funded here. There's no harm, no foul kicking it over to Indiegogo for a couple weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised because even Brian Polito, I had a panel with, I moderated Brian Polito's panel this past weekend in Phoenix. And he brought that up and he's like, wow, because Kickstarter has dominated all the press. You know what I mean? All the publicity always goes towards Kickstarter. They even call it, are you going to do a Kickstarter as opposed to crowdfunding? Crowdfunding really just came about in comics in the past, right? Less than a year, right, Nile? And that's why we said, wow, crowdfunding comics is better.
Well, it really blew up in the last year or two. I mean, it's become this it caught a lot of attention when people started seeing the figures that were being performed by all these independent creators.
Yeah. And it's so I would seriously consider that.
I think it's a big definite that I probably will. It's just I just need to read up on how to, because I'm sure they're putting it together is different, obviously, than how you do it on Kickstarter. So I just got to familiarize myself with it.
Yeah, they're very similar. They give you different options. You can collect funds right away. So if you only get 2 backers, then you have to give to those 2 backers, or you can do that whole model where you'll collect your funds, people do the things, but then if it's not successful for whatever goal you want to set, then they get refunded, or you can simply just do it on demand. Say, all right, I'm going to run it on demand for 30 days, and people just go on to buy copies. So
Right.
it's similar. It has its pros and cons. They both do, but. It's just like, as there's people that are DC people, there's people that are Marvel people. I mean, Ford, GM, Indiegogo, Kickstarter. I mean, they're devoted. And I have to say, and Billy can attest to this, I mean, Indiegogo has a loyalty that at least they speak their mind. They express their loyalty to Indiegogo and what's going on. And I don't see that with Kickstarter, really. I don't see that devotion. And I mean, more and more creators going on. More and more of the projects I see on Indiegogo, actually, these guys are hitting 6 figures. Kickstarter, big names, big names will hit 6 figures. But Indiegogo, you've got some big names hitting 6 figures. But you also have some guys where I'm like, I don't know who you are, and your campaign is at 80, 90,000. It's a different. It really is geared more to comic creators, I would say.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm sorry, Andy. I'm sorry.
I said that's really cool because, like I said, I've only basically backed a couple things on Indiegogo, so I'm not as familiar with it. But it is something I've given thought to put this on because, like I said, I mean it can't hurt. So it is a different audience.
Exactly.
But they seem to be comic fans. A lot of them are real comic fans.
They are. It's like, it really is just kind of, it's like an online local comic shop that specializes in creator-owned products. And I mean, I'm sure I know Billy can and Andy. I mean, you see kind of how the industry's going. Sure. And I think, my new thing now is hashtag our time to create, because I think it really is. And that's the reason this show came to be, is that the tools are out there. Everything is here for anyone that wants to be a creator, less the dedication and hard work. That has to come from you. And, to pull a book off, it takes a lot of time. A lot of time, no sleep. I mean, it's true dedication, and it doesn't pay anything in the beginning. And it may not pay much at all, except for the comfort that you've actually published your first book. But all the tools are out there. You don't have to depend on becoming, the next big DC guy, Marvel guy, or even like an Image. You can make it on your own completely, 100% now. And we're seeing more and more of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, I think, I tell people that, they're like, well, was it really hard to get into comics when you got in? And then I tell them my story, and they're like, well, that doesn't sound hard. And it's like, well, I had a few things, line up. The stars aligned.
Yeah.
But, when I got in, it was Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, and maybe 2 or 3 others. Mm-hmm. Now, there's lots of companies, and you don't need a company. Like
exactly.
you said. Because the thing is, there are lots of companies, but if you're trying to break in, and let's say it's one of the smaller companies, and nothing against the smaller company because we're all just trying to do something out there, you might look at it and go, well, man, that smaller company is only paying me, let's say you're just trying to break in as, doing pencil and inks, and it's a smaller company. And there are smaller companies out there that are like, man, the best I can do is like, say, $70.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might want to think about it. You, at that point, you might want to think about it and go, well, maybe I should just get with a writer and do my own thing.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm not going to get that $70 a page, but I'm doing my own thing. If we, put it up on Indiegogo, Kickstarter, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. In the long run, you might make more than that $70. Or
Exactly.
you might make 70, but guess what? You own it all.
Yep, you own it all. Exactly. And there's nothing better than having your own work or something you published or something you created and seeing that for the first time bound,
Yeah.
Your name on it or your little logo that you may make up and you may draw on your little art table with rapidographs or something like that. Yep. And there's no feeling like it in the world. I mean, we've been so trained to think of Marvel and DC as the brass ring, and it is so cool to work for them. But I've made 10, maybe 100 times the money I've made doing my own stuff than work with them. And I've worked on some big books.
Yeah.
I know.
So
and then you can get the stuff up on, you get a couple issues done, or even if you do it as a one-shot, you can get it up on, getting it up on Comixology is not even that tough.
No, not at all.
And then you never know. It might only be a trickle of a couple bucks here and there if people buying it off Comixology, but once again, it's out there and it's better than nothing.
Mm-hmm. You're on it. Absolutely.
Or it could just explode your exposure. Because then if it becomes a good book and then they highlight it as one of their recommended books. I mean, I know a couple local guys that, didn't have crazy success, but end up making, a couple tens of thousands because all of a sudden their book just blew up digitally.
Yeah.
But hey, Andy, if you don't mind, one thing I do love to do is show the video. I'm a huge fan of crowdfunded videos. So I'd love to play yours now. The fans out there and the guys viewing the show will hear the video. On our end, we will not. So let me play this for them, and then once the video's done, we'll be back at it.
Hi, Andy Smith here. You might know me from my work in comic books over the past 25 plus years. I've worked for Marvel, DC, Image, CrossGen, and now Ominous Press, to name just a few. I've also written Drawing Dynamic Comics, which came out in the year 2000 and is currently in its 7th printing. My second book was Drawing American Manga Superheroes, and after that, I did the How to Draw Superheroes sketchbook. But enough about me. My new project is Dynamic Hero Templates. This is a book where I have pre-drawn 8 different male figure types and 6 different male head types for you to design your own characters over by drawing right in the book. See, when I was a kid learning to draw, I designed characters, but my drawing ability wasn't up to the professional vision, that I had in my head. So they never turned out like I imagined. Now your designs can have a professional look by drawing over these templates. This book is perfect for young kids and adults that like to create characters, but might not have the skill level to, give the figure drawing a professional look. All you need is a pencil and your imagination. Now you don't have to concern yourself with drawing properly proportioned figures. I did that for you. You just let your creativity flow and add costumes of your design over the pre-drawn figures, whether it's superheroes, sci-fi, alien, gaming characters, movies, anything you can imagine. There are 3 pages of each character body type and head type, so you have more options to play with. The book is 8.5 by 11 and 48 pages on heavy stock paper that is perfect for pencil and pen. So, please pledge now and help me bring this book to life. Thank you.
All right. Now, Andy, what brought you over to Ominous?
Oh, man, that goes back to when Bart Sears originally did Ominous Press back in 1993, 94, 95. That's how it ran. And in 93, I was living in beautiful Orlando, and he called me up. Was like, "Hey, I'm starting my own company. You want to draw stuff for us and be the art director?" And I said, "Yeah." Can I do it from here? And he goes, "No, you have to move to Syracuse, where it sucks."
Yeah.
You have to move from sunny Orlando to Syracuse. And I literally, 3 months before, just bought my first new to me car. I bought a 1989 Toyota Supra sports car. I had it for maybe, I take it back, I probably had it for 6 or 7 months, but still. So I moved to Syracuse in the winter, in November, and sold my car within 2 weeks because I got stuck in snow. So I had to buy a truck. And we did Ominous Press. We put out 3 books out of the first 4 we were going to do. It was a 4-issue mini. We put out 3 of them. And right about the time the third one came out was when the industry took that big implosion in the 90s and sunk us. So, you know, I stayed up there, and Bart and I still had a studio that we shared and stuff. So, and that's actually when we went over to Valiant for Birthquake, is right after Ominous folded. So then fast forward to 2015 at Baltimore Comic-Con. I was there. Ron Mars was there, Bart was there, and then our old buddy Sean Husvar, who's the CEO of Ominous now, sent me a text, and he's from Buffalo. He sent me a text, and he's like, "Hey, I'm coming down. I see all you guys are there. We haven't seen Sean probably 15 years." So he's like, "Hey, I'm coming down." So he came down, and I pitched the idea to him, saying, "Hey, I think the 4 of us should do something again." And I said, you know, Bart, maybe you do something ominous character-wise. I said, maybe Ron and I come up with something else, whatever. I just think it'd be cool if we all did something. So we got to talking about it more, and it just seemed like ominous was the right thing for all of us to do. Because we always met back in the early 90s when we did it to bring Ron on board as the company grew to write a book. It just, the company didn't grow because of the industry imploding and stuff. So it was just, you know, kind of a right time thing with all 4 of us in Baltimore and talking about it. So we decided to do it again, and we decided to do it again. And we started off with reprinting the 3 issues from back in the day, because they were 20 years old now, for the new readers, and also finished the storyline. So we actually finished that 4th issue because there was only like maybe 3 pages done in 94, 95. So we finished that storyline. So those 4 issues came out. Then we partnered with IDW so they could handle all the, you know, stuff with Diamond and whatnot to put the books out. And we did Dread Gods, which was written by Ron, drawn by Tom Rainey, colored by Nanjan Jambiri, who's a fantastic colorist from India. And Dave Lamphere and Troy Pettery did the lettering on it. And then the next book was, and those 4 issues came out, trade paperbacks out. My book, Demigod, which is written by Ron as well, is what I'm working on now. I'm actually working on the 4th issue now. And that's basically, that's basically more of the superhero one. It's kind of a cross between Deadpool and Thor, whereas Dread Gods is kind of a sci-fi, futuristic type book.
Yeah.
Demigod, my book, has more humor to it. And because, you know, he kind of breaks the 4th wall. He's a god, so that's why it's a cross between Deadpool and Thor. So I'm working on that. Giant Killers is Bart's book, which we did that as a one-shot, which came out about a month or so ago. And that was a 48-page one-shot that had a story by Bart, a story that Bart wrote that Rick Leonardi drew, and Mark Pennington did the finishes over Rick's breakdowns. And then Megan Hetrick did an 8-page story that Bart wrote. Bart wrote all the story. So that's out. And we also do, we have a series of art books called the Black Book art book series. So the first one was the Black Book, Art of Bart Sears. Volume 2 is mine. We have a Jim Starlin one that's out. We have Daryl Banks one that is going to be coming out because we just did a Kickstarter for a project called Harkin's Raiders, which is a World War II project that Ron wrote and Daryl. So the Green Lantern team of the 90s teamed up again.
Nice. Are those have those been completed? Though all those are those crowdfunded books?
And Graham Nolan has one, correct? Yeah, he has one, right?
Yeah, Graham's is the other Black Book that's out.
Yeah,
I knew there. So Graham's is out, Jim Starlin's is out, mine's out, Bart's is out, of course. for Graham's Monster Island, we did a 20th anniversary printing of his Monster Island, his creator-owned property that he did 20 years ago, except we did our own creator edition, which is nice. The artist edition. It's 11 by 17, printed from their originals. Their originals were scanned in color.
Yep.
So, but because Graham did it on dual-shade paper, and dual-shade paper is the paper that I think you can actually still buy it, but basically it comes with two different chemicals. And when the chemical to the paper, it gives you a light tone, and then when you apply another chemical, it gives you a darker tone. Oh. So you have 3 tones to play with: light, dark, and then black, your ink. So we put that out. That was crowdfunded. And then the second one is Graham's Return to Monster Island, which is going to be an 8x12 hardcover, because the hardcovers we do are more European album sized.
Yeah.
So even though Demigod 1 and 2 came out as comic books through IDW, we did our own 8x12 size, 64 pages with an extra 12-page story in it. So there's more content than just the 2 issues, plus a sketchbook section and stuff. So Return to Monster Island will be size as well.
You guys are putting out amazing work.
Yeah.
I mean, honest. I mean, really amazing. I saw even at New York Comic Con, I swung by, and just incredible, The amount of talent, the quality of the books too, and all.
Well, I mean, I've got great. I remember we unboxed when I got Monster Island. Remember that, Billy? I mean, the quality of the books that came out. I mean, it was unbelievable. And the names that are coming to Jim Starlin. I mean, it's awesome what you guys are putting out.
We just finished Jim's omnibus #1, volume 1 of Dreadstars. There's going to be 3 volumes of that. So that one's at the printer now, and then we've got volume 2 and 3 on deck for campaigns to do. And Jim's great. I mean, we got to get Jim on too.
Yeah.
Maybe Andy could be our co-moderator with Jim. I'm always nervous talking to him, even though he's like the sweetest guy in the world.
So I met Jim. I love telling Jim this. He probably doesn't love it as much, and I told this story on a panel at a con. People were like, "Oh, when'd you first meet Jim?" And I said, "Well, I first met Jim when I was 13, and I went to a comic book signing and had him sign Death of Captain Marvel. I met him as a professional in 1992 when I went to visit Ron, because Ron Mars at the time lived in Woodstock, New York, where Jim lived, where he lived in Saugerties, but Saugerties, Woodstock, they're all around the same. And that's where Jim lives, and a few other professionals live up there. So I'd visit Ron, and we'd go out and play volleyball. We did indoor volleyball. So I played. This was like 1992. I'm like a year into the business, and I'm playing indoor volleyball with Ron Mars, Jim Starlin, Bernie Wrightston, Terry Austin, and Fred Hembeck.
Wow.
And I'm like, I haven't played volleyball much. I hope I don't suck, because these guys seem to do it weekly.
Yeah.
And I went bowling with Ron and Bernie and those guys one time, and I mean, it was just surreal. But Jim is such a nice guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I saw him, and he even said, "Oh, maybe we'll get a drink after." I was at a New Jersey show, but I had to hurry home for my nephew's communion. I just swung by there for a few hours. I was supposed to interview Joe Sinnott, who we're trying to get on. And we'll get Joe on. It's just, he's not really adept to the Skype and everything like that. Yeah. Don't feel like, and we don't want to bother him. He's like, yeah, I can figure it out. And then so anyway, but yeah, maybe you can help us get Jim on too, because he is so articulate. He's funny. And, I mean, I remember when we were watching Endgame, I had no idea that he was in the film, but he told me it was shot in a VFW hall in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I just went, oh my God, like that.
I know, so did I.
Right? You're like, what?
I was with my daughter, and when Jim popped up, I was like, that's Jim Starlin. Starlin. Well, Jim told me last year, he's like, yeah, I'm in the film, but I can't tell you anything else. And I'm like, ah. So, that's just, I'm glad, man. I'm so happy for him with all that stuff. That is just, I read that Infinity War and Gauntlet and all that when it originally came out. So seeing the movie and just picking up parts of it and stuff, You know, that is, I just can't imagine him sitting there watching not only that, but just Guardians of the Galaxy too.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
Gamora, Drax,
Yeah.
you know, created those guys and just nuts.
Yeah, he said he went to go see it a second time with his. We went to the premiere. Then he said he saw it 2.5 times. I don't know what that means, but time with his friend, his wife's like, yeah, it's pretty damn good movie in the city. So, well, you're awesome, Andy. We've had you on for, oh my God, almost 2 hours now.
It goes by too fast.
Minutes. We're supposed to. Then we say, oh, we'll go over an hour. But it's fun. I mean, I feel like, we're hanging out at a show. This is almost like our little virtual con hangouts, But we could maybe go with some fun questions, and then we could lead out and give them a push. But Nile, you have any,
Yeah, I mean, besides like all comics and obviously now you guys know, so you're a partner with Ominous. What I mean, what are you doing outside of comics? I mean, what else do you do? For your free time, you got a weekend. Hey, you can't do anything comic related. Andy Smith, my friend,
no.
what are you doing?
let's get to know the real Andy.
Yeah, let's get to know the real Andy.
Are you now, or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
I have not. But no, I'm an improv actor. I've been doing improv.
Really?
I've been doing improv. Well, I started doing acting in general in the late 90s in Orlando, and I did a couple commercials and there's a school down there which is really blown up called Full Sail University.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But when I did student films there, and they ran them just like the real deal. You had they would put out casting announcements or audition announcements to talent agencies and stuff. The only difference is you didn't have to have an agent to go audition. So like, I saw a flyer somewhere and I went and auditioned for a few films for like student theses because they had to do 30-minute shorts 30-minute films. Mm-hmm. And they had 10 days to shoot a 30-minute film. And so I did a few of those. I did some commercials in Orlando. Once I started working for CrossGen, because it was I had to go in basically 9 to 5. That was CrossGen setup. I stopped doing the acting because I couldn't go out anytime I wanted for auditions and whatnot. But then when we moved here, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. So when we moved here in 2005, I got back in and I did some stand-up. And then I met some people that did improv. And I like improv better because you don't have to write anything because it's improv.
Yeah.
So the thing I never liked, the thing with stand-up is I had to write a lot and I had to memorize a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
With improv, I would just go to rehearsal once a week, and then because we'd have rehearsal to go over new games and just practice because you always got to practice. It's an art form. And then I was doing for probably 4 years. I was probably doing a show once or twice a week on weekends, Friday and Saturday nights. And then I got out of that because, you just kind of get burned out after that for 4 years. And I did some sketch comedy with a troupe here in Charlotte for a few months. I had a radio show with a couple of my friends on one of the top 5 stations in Charlotte on Sunday afternoons for 2.5 years, which was basically, we had to play music because it was a music station, but the program director at the time was trying to do 70% talk and 30% music.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was all, it was an FM station, so it wasn't an AM, political talk radio. It was an FM station that was all pop culture stuff. So it was me and 2 buddies for 3 hours a Sunday afternoon. Look, that's the best we could get, and we were like, we'll take it. And we got paid. I mean, when we started it, the guy actually put us on Sunday nights from 10 to midnight because he was like, man, I got these 3 improvisers because all of us met doing improvising and stuff. He's like, man, I got these 3 improvisers. They keep giving me these demo tapes or CDs. We kept giving them demo CDs for our talk show. And he's like, all right, I put you on. I just don't have the money. So I said, what if we bring you a sponsor? I said, what if we can get a sponsor that will literally pay what the 3 of us cost for 2 hours? And at the time, we got and we always ever did. 'Cause we weren't in it for the money. We got literally minimum wage.
Yeah.
For a radio show, and at the time that was like $7.75 an hour. So
Oh God.
So we had to find a sponsor that would pay us basically 24 times 2, $50, round up, $50. So a friend of ours is a marriage counselor, and luckily, the radio station we were on, the demographic was 60% women, 40% men.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, look, if you give us $50 a week, or actually give the station $50 a week, that'll cover all three of us.
Yeah.
In the studio for 2 hours live. We'll bring you in for one segment every week, and we'll take live phone calls with people that have marriage problems.
Wow.
And so the guy's like, I'll do it, because he's employed, so we get a business out there. So we did that for 2 months, and then the program director calls us in, and he's like, you guys are doing really well. I like what you're doing. How would you like to be on Sundays from 4 to 7 instead of 10 to midnight? And we were like, hell yeah, one more hour. And he goes, and you don't even need the sponsor anymore. We'll just pay you $7.75 an hour.
No.
So we're like, yes. Now, you got to realize with radio is, if you're on for a 2-hour shift, it's more like a 3-hour shift, because you need an hour to prep what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because it comes across like it's top of mind, off the cuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when the segment breaks are. So for instance, we had 3 or 4 commercial breaks every hour at the exact same time. So since there were 3 of us, 3 guys, we would do 1 segment apiece per hour. So we had to plan what we're going to talk about, if the segment was going to fit, if like we weren't getting phone calls for the segment, we had to have a backup segment. So when we moved to 3 hours, even though we were on air from 4 to 7, we would actually get to the station at 2 o'clock. But they didn't pay us from 2 to 4. They only paid us from 4 to 7. So I was making basically $24 being there from 2 to 7. But I didn't care, man, because I was on a radio on a top 5 station in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I one of the funniest things, and thank God we were on from 10 to midnight. 2 things, and I don't mind saying this now because this was like 10 years ago. One of the guys dropped the F-bomb, and we were so shocked by it that none of us hit the dump button. So it went, and that is, and there's a 7-second delay.
Yeah.
And each of us were in front of a control panel that had a dump button. So none of us hit it because we were just in shock that this dude just dropped an F-bomb when it's like, we're on the radio.
Yeah.
So we're just praying to God that he doesn't listen to the recording the next day, because that's an automatic firing. I mean, there's no, you can't do that. It's just, you're gone.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So luckily he never heard it. So we lucked out. But we had this one woman call up, and because we did a topic on, have you ever videoed yourself having sex? And because we were on 10 to midnight.
That's our next show.
Yeah.
So we had a woman call up that said her husband wanted to, and she was like, all right. And he wanted, so they set the video camera up at like the end of the bed, and he's kind of tied, his hands are kind of tied to the head post or whatever, and she's doing her business on him, and you could tell that she was like in her 50s.
Oh.
And she just said that, when it was that time, that her husband like almost passed out. And the guy that dropped the F-bomb, which it wasn't during this, it was another instance, was laughing so hard he just fell on the floor laughing his ass off. We're just like, I can't believe we got this call. So we did that for like 2.5 years. Then the program director was let go, and the new program director was changing the format, wanted to go back to mostly music. So we got bumped. There was a talk show that was on Saturday afternoons that got bumped. We had good friends that were the midday people from 10 to 2. And these are guys that are making like really good salaries. They're not like us schmucks making this minimum wage. They're making good salaries. They got let go. They want to go back to mostly music. The merge of talk and FM wasn't really working. So then after that, because they liked us, they said, well, if you guys want to come in on Saturdays, just, one at a time and just basically DJ for an afternoon shift for 4 hours, you can do that. Because we knew how to run the board and take phone calls. So I did that for a while and just kind of phased it out because, you're just sitting there. I mean, thank God there's TV monitors, because for 4 hours playing, you're not spinning records. You're just pushing buttons.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And you're just talking stuff up like, so Justin Timberlake just did this.
Like you
TMZ reports and whatever.
Yeah.
But their sister station was an AM station, which is all political stuff. And it's a right-leaning station. So one of the guys and the three of us moved away because he got another job. So me and the other guy said, hey, could we fill in on the AM station? I'll play really far right, and my friend, the buddy, will play really far left, because in real life, I'm center right, and in real life, he's center left. So we said, nice. We'll just push it.
Yeah, sure.
And this was during the 2012 election period with Romney and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So man, all he had to do was mention something, even just center left, and the phones would light up.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. And then we would talk sports because, we're Panther Town, Carolina Panther football. Mm-hmm. So we would talk sports. So one segment we said, let's talk sport. Let's talk real sports. So this dude calls up and he wants to talk about tennis. And I go, and you want to get calls and stuff. So I'm going to be a dick. So I said, dude, let's talk real sports. I don't want to talk about tennis.
Yeah.
It's not a real sport. And the guy just yelling at me. Oh, it is too. It takes lots of athleticism. I'm like, you're hitting a ball back and forth. That's not a real sport. Football's a real sport. Those guys beat each other up, and then, the NFL or the baseball playoffs or the NBA playoffs would come around, and I would take the position of, those aren't real. You don't need 7 games.
Yeah.
Football takes 1 game and you're out of here. Babies that need, we didn't win this one. We'll get you next time. And that would just have people call up and bitch at me.
Going crazy and stuff. That's great.
Oh, yeah. So we did that for a while. It was during that, I remember it was during that election season before Romney was the nominee. What was the guy's name? Oh, my God. I'm trying to remember the other, it was another Republican, trying to get the nomination. And he's not a
Herman
senator.
Cain? Maybe Herman Cain?
No, it wasn't McCain. Basically, he was asked if it came down to it, because things were still hot in the Middle East. I mean, well, they still are, but they're not as bad as they were then.
Right.
And he was asked if he needed to, if he would drop, not the bomb, but just go in with bombs and start bombing, Iraq or whatever. And he said, oh, yeah, definitely, in a heartbeat. So, and that was like the night before we were on the air. So one of our topics for a segment was going to be agree or disagree with that. And of course, my partner that leans to the left was like, no way, you can't do that. And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
To a parking lot.
Yeah.
The glass out there. Heat it up. Man, we got calls on that one. So you just, you just got to play to the audience and stuff.
Yeah. So you could never get Shelton Drummond from Heroes Are Hard to Find to sponsor you guys for $50 a week? Did you know
the problem is
him?
I talked to him, but it's not his market, because it was a female market. So my first thought was the guy that was the marriage counselor.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. People call him for free marriage counsel advice and stuff, Yeah,
we always got, it was each segment was roughly, and there's 3 segments an hour. So each segment was roughly 12 minutes. So that's how many commercials. most people don't pay attention when they're listening to the radio. But once you know these things from me doing it and stuff, you realize that there's only, on a talk radio, you've only got like 36 minutes of talk and the rest is commercial.
Right.
It's just how they spread it out, because they'll do a 12-minute segment, a 7-minute segment, a 7-minute segment, and then, you know, add that up, subtract it from 36, whatever's left, that's another segment, and then commercials are interspliced. So, you know, we do a marriage counseling segment for 12 minutes. We'd always get phone calls.
That's great.
So,
Yeah,
and if we didn't get phone calls, one of us, well, two of us were married, the other guy was single. So one of us would just throw the guy a question, you know, make something up or
nice.
whatever.
Did you ever get, or your partner being down south, you ever get any like death threats or someone threatening to kick your ass or anything like that?
We never got death threats, and no, nobody ever really threatened us on air.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we did have people would call in, and you know, because we had a phone when we started, we didn't have a phone screener because we didn't warrant it, because they weren't going to pay somebody else to be in there.
Right.
So we were juggling, like every week we'd rotate. All right, now it's your turn to answer phones. But when we did the AM stuff, we were, you know, we had phone screeners because we were actually filling in for guys. It was like, you know, this guy's taking a vacation for a week, and you guys do Monday through Friday from, you know, 6 to 9 or 9 to midnight. And we were like, yeah. So we'd have a phone screener. So yeah, we'd have the phone screener take a call, and during a commercial break, we'd like, what was that? Because we'd see it light up, and then we'd see it go dark. And he'd be like, oh, it was just some dude calling up saying you suck and you're not John. The guy calling in for, or, you know, tell, you know, the other guy, you know, my partner, he's a, you know, dumbass or whatever, you know, and stuff like that. I mean, there was one time we didn't do our research on a topic good enough.
Right.
So, like, and I can't remember what the topic was. And I thought we did, because we really did try to you know, that's the thing. When you're doing AM political stuff, you better know your shit.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we didn't research it good enough. And like I said, I thought we did. I pulled up websites, read stuff. He did, read stuff. And it was about some laws or something. It was gun laws. And it was a South Carolina thing, because we're so close to South Carolina. So, you know, I misspoke and got it wrong. And, you know, so did my friend. So some dude called us up, and, you know, we put him on the air. And he just reamed us up one side and down the other because we were wrong about the law we were spitting out and shit. We were like, all right, well, looks like we're corrected. Thank you very much. Didn't even be so rude. Could have just told us nicely. But, dude, we got in arguments about minimum wage and stuff. And this is what my partner would do, my friend that was on, because the studio we were in had this big glass window, and his back was to it, but I could see right out it. Now, even though we were on, say, 6 to 9 at night, there's still, like, janitors and stuff walking through. So we're talking minimum wage, you know, the ever ongoing battle of, you know, minimum wage that's been going on forever. And, you know, of course, I'm playing don't even have one. And my friend's like, you got to jack it up to $15, $20 an hour. And I'm like, no, don't even have one, whatever. And he's like, so you're telling me the janitor that just walked by, and, you know,
Charlie?
You know, there's speakers in the hallway, you know? So I got to sit there, and I'm like, yeah, he chose this job. Stuff like that. So, which, of course, gets phone calls. So, you know, you just do whatever. I mean, there's always some honesty to it. I mean, you know, I've got opinions on minimum wage and stuff, and they differ. I'm not totally about abolishing it, but, you know, I've had experiences in the past couple of weeks where I'm like, no, dude, you're not getting $15 an hour.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Niall, we've got to do a political show and get some guys on the left, some guys on the right, and some guys in the center on it. We've got to have like 6 people on.
Yeah, let's do it.
We've got to do that. Why not? Let's talk politics, you know, because, you know, politics have been playing such a huge part in comics now, too.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because certain people I feel have lost their friggin' minds, you know, because, you know, they didn't get their way or whatever, you know, and they're just rabid, just wanting to talk and, you know, and so why not try to bring them on? I think that'd be fun.
Well, it's kind of funny that you bring it up, though. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Fun, too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the people I talk to about stuff here, obviously they're my friends. Currently, I've never not had a civil conversation.
Yep, me neither. Yep, me neither. Only online when people are hiding behind their keyboards, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'll type things about someone or say things or insult someone, something they would never say to their face.
Oh,
and
of course.
Not that they're afraid to get punched in the face or something, but it's just not civil. But when you're there and you're in mom's basement or wherever the hell you are typing away, it really breeds this instability and this toxicity. And there's no room for that in comics. There really isn't.
Nah.
Yeah, you gotta make comics fun again, my friend.
Yes.
Hashtag make comics fun again.
That's another one of our hashtags.
But get back to your question. That's what I do when I don't do. So basically now I just do not stand up, but improv. Like maybe once every other month I go out with a group. Because I'm still on an email list with the theater in town. There's multiple theaters in town now, so I could jump on stage any weekend I want. But I just pick and choose now. So.
What if we could put together on, say, a Saturday night or a Friday night in Charlotte during the Heroes Con, and we have an outside, little beer hall thing, and we sit outside drinking some beers with that nice weather, and we have a little improv with some of our friends.
Oh, there you go.
Do something. We just come up with something. You just start it and see.
Some improv and some impersonations.
Yeah. It'd be fun.
The funny thing is, the good thing about taking an improv class, because that's how it starts, is I had to start with an improv class.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman that runs the class and runs the theater did her training in Chicago, where improv's famous for, Second City and stuff. And you go through the class, and basically, I don't know how it is now, but when I started in 2005, they're 8-week classes. They meet once a week for like 3 hours, whatever. And whenever she feels you're ready, I remember driving home from class one night, and I think I took like maybe 2 rounds of classes, so like 16 weeks. And I'm driving home, and my cell phone rang, and she's like, "Hey, would you want to be on the cast?" And being on the cast meant that you were now a cast member, and you would still come to class, but you didn't pay because you were a cast member. And class is basically rehearsal. But there's different levels. There's level 1 class, the basics of improv, and then level 2, and then level 3, which is basically cast rehearsal.
Right.
Different games or different type of long form, because there's short form improv, which is that TV show Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Sure.
That's short form. That's get a laugh, get in and get out. Scenes last 2 or 3 minutes. Then there's long form improv, which scenes can last 20 minutes.
Okay.
So it all just
very cool.
Yeah.
Why do I keep freezing up?
I don't know, buddy. Must be your feed.
No, I'm running 5G, baby.
I don't know. Are the boys playing video games and stuff?
No.
No?
No one's up. Matthew? No. 5G, brah.
I don't know, man. You're a little glitchy.
5G.
5G.
I'm a 5 gangster.
Man, it must be.
Well, before I freeze up anymore, we should just take this home. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, this has been a great show, man.
This is a great show. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you.
We're going to keep pushing. We'll keep pushing your Kickstarter, and I hope that you would.
Dynamic hero templates.
Yep, and seriously consider bringing it to Indiegogo. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. I think it'll be less work than you think, too.
I'm sure I will. I'll start researching it now. So.
Yeah. Check it out. If you got any questions, you know how to get a hold of us. And, guys, we've got some crowdfunding call-outs. First one is Samurai and Dinosaurs, a graphic novel by Michael Murphy, who reached out to me on Twitter the other day. And he's frequented our show a few times, and he has this book coming. I'm going to play the video for you guys so you can get a peek at some of the artwork and a little bit of the concept. All right,
Nice.
guys. So when you get a
Nice.
chance, check it out. Samurai and Dinosaurs graphic novel. Samurai and Dinosaurs tells the story of an elite group of samurais dispatched to investigate a downed meteorite and claims of monster terrorizing the countryside. What they discover is reality breaking down all around them and Jurassic beasts displaced in time. So check it out.
Nice.
This one's for you, Michael
That's
Murphy,
cool.
and some interesting kind of cartoony art. I like the style.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's neat. It's different.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
guys. So check this out, and then we have one crowdfunding call out brought to us by Mr. Andy Smith, which is actually one we checked out, and me and Billy fell in love with the art on this one. Gunship Thunder Punch, guys. Make sure to check this out. There is no video, but scroll through the photos. The art is amazing. Andy is friends with the creator. Andy, if you can give us a little insight on this project.
I've known Brian for, I don't know, probably a decade now. I met him at Heroes Con actually because he lives up in Raleigh and always comes down for it. It's his first personal project graphic novel. He already did a art book, which he did through Kickstarter last year, which I backed and got because I'm a big fan of his art. Mm-hmm. He's known for working on G.I. Joe and Transformers, I believe, and you can definitely tell that.
Yeah.
And, I just think it looks really cool. I like robots and stuff like that and tech stuff. So I think it looks like a great project, and he's really off to a great start. I think he only launched it like 2 days ago.
Nice.
He's really doing good. So
yeah, he's talented, man. Yeah, we were talking about it, just like I said, from the designs to the characters, to just, the beautiful women. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
This is a project.
Why am I so small now?
It's just your feed, man.
My feed made me small.
Your feed. So whatever your bit rate is that's coming through from
all right, I'm gonna
do
right now. I'm gonna do a Google speed test. All right.
You got it.
And I'll tell you what I'm at. All right.
Andy's going smooth. No issues with Andy.
I'm on my 4G cell phone.
Well, 5G is just your home. That's just inside your home. It's not like a cell phone network. It's what's transferring internally at the Tucci residence.
No, this is my whatchamacallit, brah. This is my I'm on the internet. I'm not on the phone. Oh, you're not talking to me about that?
No.
Phone to my Wi-Fi.
Let me see if I'm on 5G.
And then,
5G?
guys, just so you know, we are approaching the finish line.
Yeah.
With Zombie Sama. So make sure to check it out. Back this project.
If I may pitch my own thing, Andy.
Yes.
All right. I'm testing my download. All right, doesn't matter. Tomorrow at 8 p.m. we are ending our Zombie Sama campaign. We are now over $68,000. Between our Kickstarter and our Indiegogo, but it's in demand. The book is going to press next week. We're not making any extra copies, maybe a few here and there, but not a whole bunch of them. And we're going to go live tomorrow, right, Nile?
Yep, we're going to go live.
We're gonna try to get the Team Zombie Sama on, so we can team on with us. We'll talk to everybody. We'll have a good salute show and to thank everyone who supported us. Again, it's your last chance to order it if you can. We got some great rewards there going. And once we're done with that, we're on to She. So I'll be talking about it tomorrow. And please join us tomorrow on Crowdfunding Comics for the Zombie Sama Salute Show.
Crowdfunding Countdown.
Crowdfunding
7 o'clock. We'll probably, we'll post it tomorrow, but it looks like we'll be doing 7 o'clock for that. And then I'll be on till about 8:30. And, Billy will be signing off the Indiegogo campaign. And then at 9 o'clock, we'll be going on for episode 22 of Crowdfunding Comics with Cal Johnson with Shinobi Sasquatch.
Awesome. Nice. Hey, Andy, thanks a million, bro. This was great.
Thank you, guys. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, this was a great time. You are more than welcome to come on. If you got any news, got any projects coming up, anything going on with Ominous, yourself, anything, give us a shout, and we'll gladly have you back on, my friend.
Cool. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, we're going to start doing shows on movies,
Oh, dude, that'd be awesome.
Avengers came out. We had a nice roundtable discussion on the Avengers. We'll start doing with the films and stuff, and we'll text you, call you if you're available to come on.
Dude, anytime. I'm a movie guy. We're seeing Brightburn tomorrow night and then Godzilla Monday night.
So awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, maybe you'll come on for our Godzilla show. Yeah,
we're gonna do a Godzilla show. I'm hoping to do Monday too, but it seems like Matthew might have a game, so maybe Debbie will take them over the weekend to watch it, and I'll go to a matinee in the afternoon, just watch it.
Cool. Yeah,
awesome.
Let me know.
Awesome. We'll let you know, brother.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. We look forward to seeing you again. Andy, thank you. Billy, as always, it's been a pleasure up there.
Thank you guys out there. Yes. Everyone out there, thank you so much.
And we will see you tomorrow night. Everyone have a great night. Thank you.
Good night, Andy. Good night,
Andy. Thank you.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, thanks again for tuning into Crowdfunding Comics. We look forward to hanging out with all of our crowdfunding fans every time we go live. And don't forget to click the link below and subscribe to our channel. And there's a little bell. You may want to hit that too. This way you get all the great notifications when we go live and when we upload some awesome content. You want to follow us? Sure, go right ahead at Twitter at CrowdFundComics with an X, Instagram Crowdfunding Comics, and Facebook at Crowdfunding Comics. Till next time, crowdfunding fans, we'll see you soon.